Hello, everybody. It's Dave
And Jeff,
and our special guest.
Bret Hildebran, TD of ASL Oktoberfest.
That is correct. And we have the
dun, dun,
t-shirts
dun.
to prove it.
Very
And
nice.
this is the Two Half Squads, one and only episode in the
The
universe
only
dedicated.
podcast
What'd I say? Oh, episode.
episode.
Getting old.
No, you're not. That's not it. Stop it. That is not it. You're just dumb.
You said yeah, that's correct. And dedicated to the greatest game in the world, everybody.
Advanced squad leader.
Leader.
That's right.
All right. And with us is Bret from
Good
Ohio.
to see you, Bret. Yeah, good to see you, Bret. It's been a while since you've been on the show. Probably. How long do you
Yeah,
think, Dave? Years and years and years?
Yeah, I didn't go back and check, but
it's certainly been a while. It might be as long as 10 years or something. I don't know. How long have you guys been
Yeah.
doing this?
It'll be 16 years.
wow,
That's impressive.
that is
Yeah.
something.
The longest running dull podcast on the internet.
Got to be known for something.
Yeah. But we still love it, and it's amazing. There's still stuff to talk about, and we always like to have guests on because we always learn something new, and
And it's a better show with guests on.
it's a better show.
I mean,
That's
that
right.
is
So it's
one of the nice things is ASL has, a lot of new stuff coming out and innovation and things. So it keeps things going.
yeah,
Yeah, I kept thinking we would get done at some point. Like we finished chapter A, and I think we finished B and C, and then you're like, what are we going to do in the future? And it's like we can't even keep up, with new product and people being to interview and stuff. And the ASL community is very participatory in terms of being able to come on the air like yourself and talk intelligently about the game, unlike us.
We'll see if I can meet that challenge.
yeah. So what have you been up to lately, Bret, in the last 10 years? Oh my gosh. I can't believe it's been that long, but
The main thing is, well, ASL wise, the biggest thing is I've been the tournament director for Oktoberfest, ASL Oktoberfest, or ASLOK for short, since ASLOK 20. So this will be my, I think, 20th one coming up. ASLOK 39 is poised for this year. In October 5th through 12th of 2025. So we're closing in on that. And it's been a long run. In addition to that, I still play ASL, tend to be weekly against Wild Bill Hayward, that we have a weekly game, and I try to get out to some tournaments, etc. Um, although the pandemic kind of limited some of those events that I haven't been getting out as much as I used to. I used to get up to Chicago every year, and since Chicago's gone virtual, I haven't been doing that. But I did make it to Albany this year, which was the first year in a while, and I'm poised to go to Winter Offensive this week, so looking forward to that.
yeah, wonderful. So 20, so you say you're coming up on your 20th year
This
doing?
will be my 20th ASLOK. I started with ASLOK number 20, was the first year that I took over the tournament director duties from Mark Nixon. So this will
Oh,
be my
that's pretty.
20th coming up.
I hope they're planning something special for you, like a cake or free breakfast or something.
I hope not, but
Yeah, you don't really always like to relish in the spotlight, I don't think, but that's probably a good thing.
yeah, I'm quite, content. Hopefully everything goes smoothly and there's not too much to talk about and people just say it was a great time, etc. Is kind of our general goal. So, but in addition to that, I also do a lot of play testing and we've had a bunch of different ASLOK action packs that have come out over the years that we've been hitting like an every 2 year type rhythm. And we're hoping to maintain that for this year. Pete Schellings does most of the design work, and then Wild Bill and I do the play testing. And those have been pretty well received, and it's kind of been nice to see. So we're striving towards that again for this year. And, you always have fingers crossed and we don't commit to anything, but our goal is to have something available for people at this year's ASLOC that would be a new action pack.
And that's
That's
not the
great.
one put out by MMP, right?
No, it is.
Oh, it is
But
that.
we,
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
we work with MMP to publish everything.
Yeah.
So,
This one in my background, 2012, that wasn't an MMP product. Do you remember that at all?
um, I mean, that looks like our t-shirt from the French
Oh, it's a
year.
t-shirt art. That's what it is.
I
That's
think it is t-shirt art, but
yes,
yeah,
you're right.
Rich Genulus did a ASLOC 20 pack then I think he released at ASLOC 20, and that's been the only one that kind of had an ASLOC name on it that wasn't through MMP.
Okay, yeah.
Everything that like Pete and I have done along with Wild Bill, etc., we've gone through MMP to do. Um, Frankly, if we're going to do maps, having them be official maps, I think makes the most sense. And, it's just easier to work with. They deal with all the headaches of printing and all those
Hmm.
details. We don't have to worry about it. We just do the play testing, get something that we think is, fair and balanced, and then work with them to get things submitted and, lined up for publication. And we've been very pleased. I've lost track of how many we've done. I want to say it's about four or so that we've been fairly regular on 2-year intervals for a while now.
Where did the ideas for all those scenarios come from?
That's mostly Pete Schelling. He's
Okay.
a
Wow.
prolific, scenario designer. He's done tons of different ones, and we've brought some different people in over the years, as guest designers and stuff. Bill Sisler had done a fair amount of work too
Hmm.
back. So like the last one we did was kind of the last of I think Bill's maps, and I think about half the scenarios. I forget if we had 12 in the last one, and I think six were Bill's. So it was kind of like the last of what we had left over from his. So it was kind of a nice way to honor him in his memory, because unfortunately he passed away in it might have been early 2020 or 2019. I forget exactly
Yeah.
which. It must have been 2020, I think, or early 2021, somewhere in that range, but it's been a few years, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, we're not getting any younger.
uh, yeah, it seems like the growth area for ASL almost is people retiring and having more time to try out the game, which I'm
Yeah,
not sure is a great demographic, but
right.
I guess whatever works.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get my kids too involved, but um, so yeah,
Yeah, we don't hear a lot of those younger players getting involved with the game. Almost, I got to say, 90% of the people that we talk to are people that played back in the early days and then took a break to have kids and stuff like that, and now they're retired and getting back into the game, which is interesting. But I mean, are you seeing that same kind of demographic at ASLOC, or do you see it shifting at all? I mean, you've been watching it for 20 years.
I mean, it's a slowly aging population, it seems, unfortunately. You'll get, some younger players here and there, although I also see a lot of those guys that came in, played a lot when they were, maybe up to 25 and then take a break to go have a family, etc.
Yeah.
And we don't see them as much. Now, the good news is we have seen a lot of guys that start coming back that have retired and are getting into the game, or they'd always been interested and never had time, and now they do. So that's been encouraging. But we were saying some jokes at the last ASLOC where somebody was looking at the room and guessing the age, and it was like, and I forget exactly what he guessed, but he was like, 50s, and I'm like, man, I think you're way low, or I think it's probably average age of 60 or higher, and
yeah.
it's unfortunately it's an aging demographic, but people are still showing up and playing, etc. So as long as everybody's coming and having a good time, it works out well.
Yes, we have gotten a few letters from people, maybe in their 40s and stuff, that have said they have been interested and are just now getting into it. And so they like, we just discovered your podcast and I always wanted to play this and I'm going back and listening to episodes and stuff like that. So there's a few of them out there. Yeah. And hopefully
Yeah.
there's more that, and I think a lot of them probably don't come to tournaments like I was afraid to when I first got into this whole thing.
Yeah, and I will say, to give a plug to any tournament for the most part, but it's probably the best way to learn. It can be jumping into the deep end, with both feet, but as long as you're not too tied up in like, oh my God, I'm going to lose or something, it's the best way to go in, play a variety of people, get insights on how the game works. And you'll take some lumps, but you can learn so much so fast. It's a really good experience, and I'd recommend it for anybody. At ASLOC, we try to do some things to help out the newer players. That Wild Bill runs what we call maneuvers. That can be kind of an instructional thing that allows them to come in, and it can be even for somebody who's a rusty or just hasn't gone on to some levels of play, like you're not familiar with OBA. So, come in, we'll set up a time for you to sit down with Wild Bill and go over whatever troubles your game. So it could be somebody
Oh,
who's brand new, or it could be somebody that wants to get into nuances. Like, if you wanted to learn Knight or something, you could come in and hook up with Wild Bill. And especially if you're willing to play overnight, because Bill does the overnight shift, you can play a great player, and learn a lot from him. So that's one of the things we try to do. We also do a starter kit tournament on Saturdays, to provide that for people as well. And there are some players that'll come and tell me, "Hey, I'm interested in helping out newer players. Send them my way," type deal, and we'll match them up with newer players. And we try to cater towards, we know certain people. And the one nice thing about ASLOC is usually there are enough people you can kind of mix and match a little bit, so that we're not necessarily going to match the newbie with the cutthroat grognard who's won two Aslocs in the past or something. But we'll match him up with the guy that is interested in teaching new players and is patient and is more experienced with that. So it can be a great opportunity, and I think a lot of tournaments can offer that kind of type thing. And like I said, it's the best way to learn. Jump in with both feet, get a variety of different play. Um, I know I've noticed that if you play one person from the same, or play multiple people from the same group, a lot of times they'll make the same mistakes. Versus going to a bigger tournament, you've got a very broad pool to draw from. So that can be a big help in making sure you're kind of getting the rules right and bringing up, things that may not be crystal clear to the group, but in a large stage, it becomes, more obvious. And, we're also there to answer questions, et cetera, if you've got rules questions.
yeah. That's also like where I learned certain tricks and I tend to remember them pretty well when you're playing with somebody. And like I had the half squad in a fortified building and they came across the street and I said, nope, can't enter. I got a half squad in there. And they went, reread that rule. Would you look at that again? I'm like, oh crap, a full squad. What the heck?
Yeah, yeah. When things go wrong is almost the best way to learn, and you won't forget that rule the next time.
Yeah, and I can't remember the player, but I remember the moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
exact moment. And there were things I learned at ASLOC, and there were things I learned in the Chicago tournament. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and ASLOC still gets some big names. Now, I was able to, as listeners probably know, I was able to coincidentally be in Ohio around the time, and Jeff and I hadn't been to tournaments a lot lately at all. And then my wife got the was like, why don't you just go? Like, instead of sitting around with me and my mom and my sister, because I'm trying to be a good family guy in law. And I'm like, hey, you think I should just go? Right. And I just showed up, and Brett's like, this guy looks vaguely familiar. Who is this guy? And I was like, I'll pay to come in. He said, no, you bought all these cool shirts and some old shirts, so you already helped out. And then we set up a quick crappy studio because I didn't bring any recording stuff, not knowing I was going. But yeah, the big names are there. MMP guys, they some of them
Usually Perry
Kurt,
comes every year. This year Yom Kippur kind of dovetailed with when Perry usually shows up. So we missed out on Perry this year, but I'm pretty sure he's been there the last 5, if not last 10 type deal, where he makes it most of the time. Kurt was there and doing a fair amount of play testing. I think he was the only MMP representative this year, and it kind of varies depending on the year. But a lot of the bigger players, Steve Pleva, J.R. Tracy, missed this past year, but he's there a lot. Bill Cirillo always makes it.
Yeah,
There's a litany of guys. Bob Bendis is usually there from Chicago.
Yeah, he brought my t-shirts back when I left them there.
That's right. That's right. It was good timing that Bob was still hanging
I
around.
was able to contact you. Hey, I'll get in touch with Bob. He's got to bring my shirts. Is he there?
Yeah, yeah.
And sadly, my sister passed away. But
sorry to hear that.
His friend, who's an acquaintance of my sister, brought the T-shirts to my sister's memorial
Oh, okay.
time, which was sad, but also kind of funny in a way.
It can be a small world sometimes.
Yeah, she walks up. I got a bag of T-shirts for you. I'm sorry for your loss, but I was like, oh great, I got the T-shirts that I left there in a pile.
Yeah, yeah. But we get a fair amount of players from all around the world. The overseas attendance has been down a little bit recently. I think, since the pandemic, unfortunately. But it's been picking up, and there are a lot of rumors that it's going to pick up a lot this past year. But we'll see if some of those guys come back. I've been hearing rumors that there could be another Swedish invasion, and some of those guys coming in. And I was talking to Michael Hapstrup Leth at Albany, and he was talking about coming for only the second time since it's been 20 years since he was there for SLOG 20. So, I got my fingers crossed we'll get a large that usually making Philippe Briot's there every year from France. And, we get a ton of other players that come every so often. And, it's a great time to see those guys. And hopefully more of them will be able to come in, make it.
Yeah.
So for those listeners that are tuning in and don't really know about it, ASLOC, it is the biggest tournament, you think, of the year?
Yeah, it's the biggest for ASL. Winter Offensive overall attendance, I think is depending on the year, they might have bigger numbers, but we have more ASL players versus they'll get, 40 or 50 for their other games. So ASL wise, I think we're still definitely the biggest. I think we had 124 last year, if I'm remembering right. Pre-pandemic, we were kind of in that 140 to 160 range most years and probably averaged 150-ish. And we had a few spikes here and there where I think we spiked up to, I think we topped just over 190. It was,
Wow.
In the one year. So,
And why is that?
ebbs and flows.
Why is it so
I think that was for ASLOC 30, and there were just a lot of people that were kind of like, 30, that's going to be cool. And things can kind of snowball where, hey, a lot of people, bring in their friends. They're like, hey, I'm going to go. You should go. And, things kind of just snowball that way. So,
yeah. Like often from our Passel club that when I was running it here, which I'm not anymore really, but playing individual games, yeah, if Rich Spilkey was going, he'd check with everybody else, or Bob Holmstrom. He'd, be sure to check who's going to go, and Stubitz would join in. And this year, they were not a lot of the Chicago guys were going from my side of the state, town.
Yeah.
This year, so
yeah, hopefully we'll get more of those guys coming back. But yeah, I guess it was 186 in 2015 for ASLOC 30 was our all-time attendance record, and we had another year of 183 in 99. And sometimes things can just flow with the economy and everything that you'll see dips where the economy gets bad, the housing crisis or something, and we'll get a little bit of a dip. 9/11 was another one that was a little bit of a dip in the wake of that, just because we do get a lot of guys that are military, etc. So, if they're deployed overseas or something like that, it affects things.
But again, why Aslock? It can't be because it's Cleveland.
It's because it's
And people are
Cleveland.
just dying to go to Cleveland.
It's in the middle, Jeff.
It actually is very centrally located for the
Oh,
U.S.
okay. So that
population.
is okay.
Um, there's an outlandish number of population that can drive to Cleveland from the East Coast, et cetera, and all the way through Chicago, that
Okay.
it's fairly centrally located, so it's somewhat convenient that way. We do have an international airport that's decent, and we pull some people from Canada as well. That it's a lot of the Toronto guys will roll in. I think a lot of them, you actually interviewed.
John Kay and Wei Wong, and a little bit with the guy that won, I think.
Oh, John McDermott, yeah,
Yes. Yep. And there were some
yeah,
others.
yeah. So they have a good crew that comes in most years, and it's been great that they've made a tradition of coming over to see us. And they're all, good guys that are, very good players and are fun to play. Um, there's a little bit of the that Cleveland is actually, the guys from Chicago to, the DC area to New York City, et cetera, can access it. It's not that, bad a trip. And there's also the tradition. It's the oldest. Um, you know, Fish Connor and Daryl Action Burke founded it back in what I guess 86. So it's been around, longer than anybody else. And it built up pretty quick, and that's kind of kept things coming in. And we like to think that we offer a fair amount for the people coming in, but it is an opportunity that I think somewhat unique that you can play for a week plus. So, we'll usually have guys come in the Friday before. Um, we might only have one or two games going on that Friday, but we'll get 10 or 20 people in on Saturday, and it builds up where, usually by the day of the picnic, that Dave Gennard hosts a picnic Sunday night at his place.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times if the weather's good, et cetera, he might have 60 people or so there. Somewhere in that range, 40 to 60. So you've got a lot of people coming in early. There's some guys that'll come in, play with a buddy, and they'll do giant scenarios. We've got one thing we call the big game hunters that we've kind of organized where guys that would like to play a giant scenario, just kind of, it's almost like an ad hoc mini where usually we'll get about four guys and they'll play, a couple 1 day scenarios to decide the champion, and we'll give them a plaque and $10. But you can do that. You've got space, you've got time. And then it slowly builds up. We do the World Cup through Tuesday. That's a US versus the world, which is kind of a fun event. And it was more fun this year because for only the second time we actually won it was the Americans, which was kind of a shocker, but it was nice to see. Make it a little more competitive, given we'd only won it once in, I think it might have been about 17 tries or so. So, you know, um, and then starting Wednesday, we start running officially the minis Wednesday through Saturday. They're minis that start at 8 a.m., which are just small 8-person theme mini tournaments. Winner gets a plaque and $10. But you can walk in Wednesday morning, and if you're there by 8 a.m., you're guaranteed to have a game and a chance to play in that. And then starting Thursday, the Grofaz officially starts, and like the Thursday minis count for the Grofaz. And the Grofaz is the big tournament that everybody's striving for to win. And that usually plays out with a final. Lately, it's been Saturday night, but often it would be Sunday, depending on how many undefeateds we end up having, etc. But there's a lot of opportunities there to come in and play a lot of ASL. So, one guy, I think it's John Garlic from Texas, will roll in and he just plays a ton of games. He tries to get in as many games as he can. He comes up, starts playing on Saturday, and there's some years that he's gotten like 22 games in or something.
Wow.
And he just goes. and it's impressive, but he doesn't get a chance to play much face to face where he is. He's usually just playing Vassal, and it's a great opportunity for him to come in and play a bunch of guys, and it might be, meeting some guys in person that he's played in Vassal for years, but had never had a chance to meet, that kind of thing, which can be a lot of fun. But that's the opportunity. You can kind of make of it what you will, even if you don't want to play in the big tournament. A lot of guys will roll in and play in a bunch of minis and just do that. So, or they're guys that come in and just play their buddies. Now I'm suddenly blanking on the name. But some of the guys, Rob Banazik, would come in, and sometimes, since Rob had moved out of the Chicago area, he'd come in
Mhm.
and he would just play with his buddy, and they'd play for a week, and they didn't get a chance to play much otherwise. So it worked
Yeah,
out.
I think Spilky used to meet people
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
and he used to sometimes do a big game. Like he met Dennis Donovan specifically to play
Right.
through
yeah.
Onslaught to Orsha.
Yeah, yeah. And there's
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I think Spilky and Rob would play in they might play a 2v2 match against a couple guys in one of those big scenarios type thing, that you have that opportunity that, hey, you could take 2 days and play something giant.
Yeah, not have to leave it on the table for 3 weeks or a month.
Yeah. Yeah. You can actually get it done in a timely manner.
Yeah, and then so for the Grofaz, like I remember going. Boy, I wish I could remember the year offhand, but Jim McDermott, a guy I used to game with, probably played like 60 games together every week almost for a
Okay.
stretch, and then we kind of fell off. We knew we were getting older, and this was when we were young, because we didn't want to drive the 40, like to me to Chicago and him to my suburb.
Yeah.
Because it was starting to be, it used to be like 35 minutes or 45, and it was like an hour 15 as traffic kept getting worse and worse. And I knew we were done when I said, I think it's your turn to come out this weekend. He was like, no, it's your turn to drive into the city. And we was like, yeah, this is getting to be a little bit too much for far apart. But he went with me to Aslock, and he was always an
Okay.
adventuresome type. And yeah, just this was back. Well, Fish was alive, but we interviewed Fish and Action Burke on episode
Okay.
47,
Okay.
2011, before Fish passed. We were very
Okay.
blessed to get that in. And where was it held then? Well, that wasn't Youngstown though, right?
No, that would have been that was probably we'd probably moved to the Holiday Inn on West 150th at that point. So it was technically in Cleveland itself.
Yeah, I think so.
So like the first six were in Youngstown. 7 and 8 were in Brook Park, that they moved it up to Cleveland, and then 9 and 10, they moved it back to Youngstown. And then that was the last one that Fish and Darrell ran. And then for 11 in 96, Mark Nixon took it over and they moved to Middleburg Heights. And we were in Middleburg Heights for a long time. So I took it over in 2005 for ASLOC 20 that was in Middleburg Heights. And we stayed there a few years, but the hotel was going through renovations and there was a big decline there at some point. And then after they came out of the decline, they decided they wanted to charge us a lot of money, even though we stayed through them with the decline, and we ended up having to move. And we moved to a nice place that was kind of just up the road on 71 that was in Cleveland proper, at West 150th. And we were there a number of years. And then 2 years ago, we ended up having to move from there because they went through their own decline, and we're actually at the Bertram Inn and Conference Center in Aurora, Ohio, which is a southeast suburb. The only Overall, it's been incredibly well received. It's a great
Yeah.
space. They do a ton of weddings there, etc. And we kind of are out in their expansion area. Um, so we've got a little bit of privacy, but
Yeah.
nice access to the parking lots and everything. And it's really good that way. The biggest downside is it's a good haul from the airport. So um, we've had to coordinate a little bit of that. That it's not just down the street, so it's a little bit more challenging if you're flying in. But overall, we've been, able to manage that fairly well. So
Yeah, it seemed further out, but it seemed like a great space. I have some pictures I'll go ahead and throw up again on the YouTube version of the podcast. Um, and I remember that, and you're right, that side building, right? Like I walked in the
yeah,
main building.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, where are all the strange guys wearing Asslock t-shirts? They're not here. They're all through the causeway or something,
Yeah,
and then to the
yeah.
in this whole other building, which was really great. I think you could tell how excited I was just to be back and to be seeing
Well,
all
and
these
hopefully
people.
we'll see you again, maybe this year. That'd be good.
Well, we're definitely we're. I'm going to Kansas City. I don't think Jeff
Okay.
is. My wife is, but she's gonna. We're staying with a friend, and so now that I'm retired, Jeff's still working. I'm trying to get in that.
Sorry about that, Jeff.
That
Yeah,
that
thank you.
bucket list of let's finally get one of the half squads to some of these tournaments.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
that first time, just that huge room, all these guys gaming, and I've said on before on the show, I have to stop repeating things, but it's the only things I have in my life experience. Watching what's his name who took over doing the journal.
Are you talking Gary Fortenberry?
Yeah, Gary. I watched
Okay,
Gary and someone
okay.
else play because I knew Gary's name, and as I always say, I was so excited, and then it's like watching paint dry. But I saw him use smoke, and that was a revelation.
Yeah,
Like, oh, he's
yeah.
put because that guy's got a high tower with machine gun and 9 egg 2. Oh, he's doomed. Oh my god, he just put smoke on it. I don't use smoke. I don't like the rules. It's too hard. So from then
Yeah,
on, we were learning smoke in this house.
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
watching some good players play can be a great way to, quickly learn the game and see what you're missing out on type thing. And it is one of those small world for ASL type things. I'll always remember the first year I went to Aslock, which I think was the first year it was in back in, or I guess the first year in Cleveland. So it was like Aslock 7 in 92. And I was playing Steve Peterson, who was an MMP playtester, or not, technically he was part of MMP, but he was an Avalon Hill playtester at that point in time. And we were playing in the little Burning Wreck annex behind there. And Rex Martin, who at that time
Mm.
was the editor of the journal, or editor of the General, was sitting there watching us play, and it was just kind of surreal. Where it was like, wow, I get his magazine in the mail all the time. It's like, a guy from Sports Illustrated watching me play. This is really weird.
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, it
See,
was it was very odd, but it was kind of cool.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
went up to Kurt Schilling, and I remember I got to stop telling these stories. I'm sure I told at some point. He was a pitching in some sport. I forget what kind of thing he was doing, but my dad liked baseball. It was baseball, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
dad liked baseball, and so I realized Kurt Schilling was now an ASL kind of guy. And so, because your dad doesn't give you a lot of credit when you're playing war games, even if they're war games. Still, he was kind of like, my son's a little odd. So I could say, "Oh, hey, Dad, that guy pitching, yeah, he plays that game." And my dad was like, "What? It's respectable. A respectable athlete was playing this game." So anyway,
yeah, yeah.
and then I know with like people are famous, so I met Rich Summers this year at ASLAC, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And he hadn't been for a while, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know that he won Aslock 11 in 1996, and I'm not sure he came back since then.
And he wrote some
Believe it or not.
articles though
Oh yeah, no, he was
somewhere.
quite prolific and was, one of the better players, great guy, and was big on the tournament scene, etc. But at some point he moved to Tennessee to be a college professor, and
Oh,
you know, getting out of college to come to Aslock, I think didn't work very well type deal. So there were a
oh
few
yeah,
years
in
I'd
the
see him in
fall.
Chicago after that, but it had been a long time since I'd seen him. It might have been, when I saw him last in Chicago was the early 2000s or something, but it was really cool for him to come back, and he had a good run. He made it, fairly far this year, which was nice to see. And, Rich is just a great guy, so it was great to see him back on the scene.
Yeah, and I had not seen him anywhere. So when Bendis introduced me, I was like, you know, oh, Rich Summers, you're famous. And he was so taken aback. It was kind of hilarious. He was like, what? Like, who are you? And what do you mean I'm famous? I'm like, didn't you do this and that and the other? And he was he was just taken aback, like, what? That's crazy. I'm not famous. I go, oh no, you're famous. So anyway, that's the kind of fun I had going, seeing.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's a great way to, go to any of the tournaments and you'll meet some, new people and put faces to people you see online and everything. And, a lot of people are a lot friendlier in person than they are online, which is always nice.
Hmm.
Oh, well, see, I haven't played a lot online, so
Oh, I wasn't talking about playing online, just, the
oh,
general, you know,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
posting on things.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. Everybody's
yeah,
yeah. When you're not in person, right? You can just be
yeah.
brusque and act like you're a know-it-all. Or
Yeah,
usually,
everything I've heard about Vassal play online and everything, I haven't heard people say there's been unfriendly experiences or bad things,
yeah,
but
because
I
it's
honestly don't or haven't played any Vassal. I I'm fortunate enough to have a regular opponent that comes to my house, so I don't have to commute and everything, and
you-
so I haven't really indulged in too much Vassal play. It's one of those things that's on my list of I probably ought to look into it more now that I've got more time and I'm not spending all day staring at a computer otherwise. So
yeah. And so when people are online posting, that's more anonymous, and you can be more brusque and stuff. I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. And it all depends. You know, I don't know that it's gotten particularly bad of late, but there would always be some controversies over the years.
Yeah, and we don't do a lot of that stuff at all,
Yeah.
which probably maybe should. I don't know. We're posting on X, and I don't even post much anymore for us, Jeff. There, and um, it's not. It's well, we've got. I think we've kind of people know where we're at, and then again, you can see people at the tournaments and things, or on Vassal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to touch in a little bit more with Game Squad and Discord, those communities a little bit more often. So I'll do some, looking at the rules and different things or comment when it's appropriate, but I've been fairly low key myself.
Yeah, it is helpful to have a rules question and be able to get someone who knows. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and there's some, guys online that are great at the rules, questions, etc. So that can be a big advantage.
Yeah, for sure. And then the grow files, I remember going to that one and some other one I went to, and you're picking any games you wanted to play with people, right? But
Ye-
they don't count for the official tournament, or how does that work now for the grow
Um,
files?
so right now, the way the Grow Fuzz works, we run one Wednesday mini that's called Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is kind of designed to be two scenarios on Wednesday, and then the final is on Thursday. And the final is supposed to be a full day scenario. So because those guys are kind of locked in on a Thursday, they become 2-0 in the Grow Fuzz automatically. And then anybody else on Thursday, you can play in a mini and you can get up to 2-0. So each of your wins count for the mini. And then a loss is kind of a mulligan, so it's a freebie. And you can only come out of the day 2-0. So if you ended up making the final, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you're 2-0 for the Grow Foz starting Friday. And then you could also do open play. So either if you didn't want to get into a mini or you got bounced early and you still wanted to make a run, you can, we can match you up with different people and you can count up to two wins there. So starting the day Friday, we, hope to have a bunch of 2-0 people. They're kind of going for it. And then one of the things that's been popular, I guess we've been doing this for a while now, but it's called a Growfaz Mini on Friday that we run two different Growfaz Minis. One's a best of the best, which is kind of classic scenarios, and I try to choose elite troops. And the other one's a best of, it'll be 2025 this year. So it's scenarios that were published within the last year. So basically anything that comes out at Winter Offensive on would count as a possibility to be in this. And we try to pick stuff that we feel is, better and balanced and probably a little on the bigger side. But in general, a lot of people will drop into that. So we try to end up with 2 full rounds of 8 in each of the Grofaz minis. So that'll get 2 people to 5-0. And then depending on the year, in a perfect world, I've got people playing Grofaz at large. They can pick anything they want, play it, and they'll get to 5-0 as well. In an ideal world, I'd end up with like 4 5-0s, and that would give me a 7-0 in the end. Best laid plans are always at risk, and lately, this past year, I think I only ended up with 2 5-0s, which made life interesting. Um, but we had a cascade, or it ended up working out perfectly that John McDermott ended up beating, the spoiler, and it decided it cleanly, because we were debating how that was going to go. And a lot of years we'll end up with like 3 5-0s, and so we end up having to pick a spoiler who can
Oh,
come in and be the fourth person that has a shot to advance and move up. So generally that's how it works, and I think the rules say, I want to say you need to get to 6-0. If you're the last undefeated at 6-0, then you're the champ. But being the last undefeated at 5-0 isn't enough to get you there.
yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Well, it's thanks for. Well, we're not stopping the interview yet, but thanks for doing that and taking care of all that.
sure. Overall, usually that almost takes care of itself, and it only gets kind of artful there at the end when I'm trying to get, um, you know, how many 5-0s I've got, and do I need to find another one, and where are we going with that, etc.
Yeah.
But in general, it's worked out, and we haven't had too many, major controversies or anything. So,
And since the tournament's more lengthy, I remember like at the Open here in Chicago in person, and a lot of them have like the 2 games Friday night and 3 on Saturday, or 4 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and it was rushed to have they have to call games. Dave Goldman had been on, talked about having to call
yeah,
some games. That doesn't really happen at Aslock.
no, particularly in the Grofaz, we don't really have fixed rounds per se. So, especially an open game, you don't have a fixed round. Our goal normally would be for the Grofaz play, we'd expect 2 games on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and then if there's another game needed, a game on Sunday. So that's kind of the general pace, which for the most part is fairly easy. We try to avoid doing the, calling the game. So we do have a time limit for the minis that the first round games are supposed to be done by 2 p.m. And our general rule of thumb is you need to tell me who the winner is, or you're both losers. So it makes it simple on
Mm.
my part that I don't have to listen to sob stories, etc. And they can debate it amongst themselves. Some guys I've seen will dice it off. Others will be like, "Yeah, you've got it. Go ahead." There was one. I remember one time when the guys were like, "We're having a really good game. We don't want to call it. We're just going to keep playing," and they dropped out of the mini. And it was like, "Okay, cool." So the next guy got a bye, and whatever works. But
Yeah, I used
it
to do that at school. It was a good technique. You got 2 kids fighting or something, you put them in the hall and say, when I come back out here, I'm going to expect the same story out of both of you about what happened, or it's going to get worse and have to go to the office or something. And that at least gave them a chance. If you had semi
yeah,
reasonable kids, they could come up with, well, did you push him? Well, yeah, but he did this. Well, did you? Well, I did too. Yeah. And so, okay, what do you want to do about that now? And they could kind of calm that down without having to police it. They could reach the truth if they felt there was
yeah, yeah. So for the most
reason.
part, it works out fairly well, and we're not, rigid where we're looking to jump down anybody's throat that it's 205. It normally is one of those that if their next opponent is waiting and bothered by them, then I'll go, figure it out. But otherwise, I'll, kind of let it go. And it depends, if their other opponent finished their game at 150, they may be quite happy to have half an hour to go grab some food, that kind of thing as well. So we only try to enforce it when there's a real need.
Yeah, Jeff, I remember you had an idea of selling movie popcorn at as a street vendor. You could probably just sell it at Asslock because guys are you have to
I
skip
probably
meals.
could. I was thinking as the players get older, I could also probably rent defibrillators, maybe at each table,
Well,
if
knock
there's a
on wood.
defibrillator. I think there should be a defibrillator rule for for leaders, maybe, that get wounded.
It could be a nice touch.
Yeah,
You can use it in the ASL rules, you mean,
yeah,
and get your
yeah,
leader
exactly.
back up to a
Yeah.
992 instead of a 991.
So I wouldn't think that it's happened, but after 20 years of experience, Brett, and since nobody listens to the show, so it's just us three talking. Um, what's the worst thing that's happened? I mean, have you ever had any really nasty disagreements that have gotten out of hand or anything like that? Where's the dirt? We want to know the dirt.
With no names, of course.
With no names, yeah.
Just player X.
Um,
Has it happened?
I over the years there've certainly been some disagreements here and there. I will say that as we've aged,
Hmm.
things have gotten a lot more mellow.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It used to be when, people were, I don't know, 20 something or 30 something, they took things a little more seriously. Um, and things have gotten better. It's not quite as high stakes as it used to be, that kind of thing. Um, there was one where, somebody didn't want to play a certain opponent, and
Oh.
that became a little awkward. But it kind of resolved itself. So
Yeah, because I talked to him, Joe. And I said, "Hey, man, you can. I won't give you a hard time today." And then it worked out okay. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, so also, well, I had one thing at the club here, even where one person came to the side and said, "Yeah, So I could just not pair them up together because
Yeah,
it's not a
yeah.
tournament. I could just I'm kind of randomly trying to move people around and then but it's just a small club. Four to I don't know, Jeff. At times we had 10 in here,
Yeah,
but
probably.
It's pretty good.
but the what about like funny stories?
Uh,
I hear there's a guy that brings a dog sometimes. Is that
I mean,
it's Bendis?
I was going
No.
to say Bendis
Oh,
certainly has over the years on occasion.
You
I
can.
one of the long time I'll always remember, and this goes back a long time, probably in the range of Aslock 15 or 16. And I think it was a local Cleveland player named Mike Libbins who was uh playing, and I think we're sitting in the main room and he comes running in like bouncing up and down all excited because he had a truck overrun and got like a
Oh,
one down one, and I think he rolled snake eyes with it and killed the guy type deal, and he was super pumped. And so you'll get some of those type things where you get some fanciful event that likely shouldn't happen but does, and it's a million to one shot and they come through. But he was all quite excited.
yeah, nothing like fire alarms going off or anything. Police raids.
We had the fire chief come out one year at
Oh,
one of the old hotels where the when it was kind of on the downside and they weren't doing things quite as ethically as they should have been, where they were like locking up the back door and stuff, and it was kind
oh
of like,
yeah,
that's not legal, right? They can't. And then at some point the fire chief came out and explained to them that it wasn't legal, and I think they started to take things a little more seriously after
yeah.
that. So that there was that awkward one. That would have been, probably, I don't know, S-Lock 21 or 22, somewhere in there. It's been a while, at least, on that. I don't think we've had too many fire alarms or that kind of thing, but
Yeah, just
yeah.
tell them to remember the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York in whatever 2011, whenever or 1911, whenever that was.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I was a little blown away that they were, doing that. And I was kind of like, but we've got people that stay in the room overnight. We've got people there. You need to let them. And they didn't quite get the
Evan,
concept. So
they can also act as guards then because they're in there too. They won't let people come staggering in.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's I remember the Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, I was changing the topic a little bit, just like there's some shouting that goes on when guys roll a certain something or
I mean, there certainly can be some shouting on either snake eyes or boxcars, depending on the moment. So that can happen.
But I
yeah,
think
were there other occasions where guys were shouting something
no, I
like,
think you're thinking of Texas, Jeff. I think don't they have to yell a certain thing on a certain die roll?
oh, maybe it's at Texas. Yeah, that
I
could
think it's
be.
Texas. We haven't been to Texas. Have you been to Texas,
Yeah,
Brett?
I have not. It's on my list of ones I want to get to, and I
yeah,
haven't
me
started to
too.
look at my June schedule yet to see if this could be a year I'd try to get out there or not. I'm trying to make it to a few more that I haven't been to before. I was looking at the Canadian ASL Open or Caslo and
Yeah, yeah.
in the Bitter Ender down in North Carolina. So I've at least, put those on the calendar as possibilities, but I haven't made it out the calendar to June yet to see if that's a viable one to make it out to Texas, but I've only heard good things.
Yeah. And then what games are you playing personally? Uh any
Uh,
current?
I mean, for the most part, I play ASL if you're asking for other
Yeah.
games or
Or well,
uh,
that and what scenarios or like I'm working
yeah,
through. We finished Korea, Dave and I, and I'm
oh,
working
okay.
through something else.
Yeah, so we've started play testing for what we're hoping is going to be the ASLOC 39 pack. So lately that's been what I've been playing. We played through two PTO ones that are really dicey, but probably fairly balanced in their diciness. It's just, it's one of those, if you play it once and it's dicey, you might not think it's balanced because they can skew pretty hard. But it's kind of the nature of having a 9.2 liter and a 50 cal in one of them, and
Oh
the other
yeah.
one's kind of, reliant on close combat, so you get up close and personal and you get a lot of close combat with Americans, and it could snowball pretty hard one way or the other. But those are a fair amount of fun. And then we're looking at another one right now that's a little Russian German take kind of a small village or building type thing, and we're trying to figure out how to get that one quite balanced. It's a Matt Zajac design. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then other games? Not at
um
AS.
for the most part, I mostly play ASL. And I'm trying to think of the game we were playing with the family over Christmas that was it's got a weird name like the L or something that's almost a you go through and figure out um different patterns, and you've got shapes you can draw that'll be, I think you start with like a one and a two chit, and then you can do certain events, and you basically draw cards to fill out to put in those chits to fill out the pattern, and then you get points for the pattern, and then the cards will reward you with a new shape, and then as one of your events you can upgrade a shape and things like that. But I'm blanking on the name of the thing, but we are having a fair amount of fun playing that over Christmas. So it's kind of
With the
nice.
family? Yeah,
Yeah,
or
that was a
friends.
family game. So we were just playing it three players, so nothing too elaborate. Project L strategy.
Project L strategy.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool. So
Yeah, we
Oh,
were.
they're not a sponsor.
Yeah, yeah, we should. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, as we wrap up. Anyone got anything else they want to add?
No, I think that's been, it sounds like a good show. Really appreciate you joining us tonight, Brett.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you for
I
your good work.
appreciate it and appreciate you guys having me on, and congratulations on 16 years of podcasting. That's quite the run. It's very nice that there's a voice in the community that everybody can share. So we appreciate you guys doing what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much.
Indeed.
Appreciate it. And maybe we will see you at ASLOC.
Would be great. And people that are interested, I haven't posted the new information for this year yet, but it'll go up this week at aslok.org. That's aslok.org. So you can jump on that and grab all the pre-reg info, etc. And my email's on there. It's just brethildebran@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And we can walk you through whatever you need to know if you haven't been, etc. Um, but we're, hoping to see a bunch of people there this year. Like I say, since the pandemic, we've been kind of hitting in the 120s the last couple of years, and we're hoping to jump back up to where we were, closer to 150-ish. I think if we get some of the overseas guys coming back, that'll bump us up 10-ish or so, and hopefully it'll snowball and we'll see more and more people.
Yep. Encourage everyone to
Maybe
go.
if you up the price on some of those little tournaments to maybe $15 instead of 10,
That'll be the difference.
I think that'll do it. They'll be breaking the doors down trying to get in there.
Speaking of prizes, Brett, we have 11 entrants in our contest for the Fire Me Up scenario packs that we put up a show or two shows ago.
Okay.
And if you could pick a number between 1 and 11, if you're so willing to do this, and you would be selecting the winner.
Okay. Let's go with lucky number 5 for Johnny Bench.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is Michael Sherman. Michael Sherman.
Michael Sherman
are the winner.
Da, da, da.
We will be sending that out to you, Michael. And in the meantime, we would say, remember everybody to roll low, but rally well, but not when you're playing us. Bye-bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. See you in the next show.
Thanks.
Thanks again, Brett.
Sure. Thank you.